Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Brindle here, and welcome back to the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business to seven figures or above. I'm here with another phenomenal guest, somebody that I have interviewed on the YouTube channel before. Many of you probably know her, but just in case you do not, I'm here with Malia Rogers, who is an ACA and Medicare phenom as an agent, trainer. Um, there's so many things I could say about Malia. Super excited to have her back on the show. Every time we invite her to do anything, she always over exceeds my expectations personally. We had her speak at the summit last year. She was spectacular on stage. We've done some videos with her in the past, and they've always been terrific. So first off, Malia, thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. Thank you for having me back on the show. I always have so much fun when we chat. So thank you for inviting me again.
Well, the pleasure's all mine, and I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insight and knowledge as always. I want to start at the beginning of your story, right? I want to kind of go back to the beginning and talk about kind of how you got started in the insurance industry, right? Because I've always said that it seems like nobody grows up wanting to be in insurance, right? Like it's never the sexy, it's never the police officer or the fireman or the astronaut when you're a kid. No kid's like, I want to be an insurance agent. They'd probably be bullied or something. Um, and so most of us, when we find it, it's almost like by happenstance. But I wanted to kind of hear, just kind of your introduction, how you got into the business. What does that introduction and intro look like for Malia?
Yes. Thank you for asking about that. So, I just want to start by saying that when I was growing up, I was extremely, extremely shy. Like, afraid to talk to strangers actually, and
Really?
I was super quiet. If you ask some of my classmates from high school, they never in a million years would ever think that I would be talking to strangers or even speaking on stage. So even
Yeah.
ten years ago, I would have never thought I would ever be speaking in front of an audience, and the thought actually still terrifies me, to tell you the truth.
Mm.
But anyway, I believe fully 100% that it was a God thing that I got into this. So let me kind of share the story with you so you can um, get the full picture.
Yeah, please.
And so what about 10, 15 years ago, I was in the mortgage industry, and believe it or not, I was a top producer in that area. And one day or one time, they asked me to take a month off and train a group of new hirees. And so when I did that, I met this lady named Jacqueline Lang, and we became friends, and she ended up going into the insurance industry. So
Mm.
fast forward a few years later, I'm no longer in the mortgage industry, and she calls me out of the blue and she says, "Malia, I've spent the last 8 years building this insurance business, and I've got some other things that need my attention. And so I keep praying about what I should do with my business, and your name keeps popping up every single time I prayed about it." And so she said, "Hey, if I teach you about the business, you could build your own business, and you could just help me take care of my book." And so that's how I got into the business. At first, I actually said no to her. My husband and I were teaching concealed carry classes at the time, and we
Mm.
were doing pretty well. But she said, pray about it and talk to Chris about it. And then later on, I thought, you know what? The gun business is not residual income. When I came into the business, I had no idea what it would entail or the amount of money. The sky is really the limit when it comes to this industry. So I feel really blessed being in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you get started, right? You kind of go back and forth. You're thinking about, you know, whether this is the best direction for you or not, but you ultimately end up getting started, you start going in it. How does that first year go in the business?
Yeah. So funny thing, my kids were babies at that time. And
Mm,
so when I started, I was only working part-time and basically only making phone calls during nap time. And so at that time, I actually had my office at the foot of my bed. We were in this little house, and I would make calls. And then if the baby starts waking up and crying, I would have to run into the bathroom and continue the phone call that way. And I remember one time a lady said, "Are you running a daycare out of there?" Because she heard my baby crying. And then I said, "Well, actually, no, it's my baby. I work from home." And then she said, "Oh, okay, cool." So back then, it wasn't as popular to work from home, but I was so grateful to have an opportunity to work, a good, decent job and work around the schedule of my babies. Eventually, I ended up hiring someone to come watch the kids while I took phone calls, and then it just blew up from there.
got it. Got it. Okay. Um, there's 16 questions that I have, but I'm trying to pick which one's best. Um, One thing I've always, admired so much about you, but also, others like you that get started in the business and you have young children, right? Is like the challenge of finding the balance, right? Of being a mom to babies pretty much at that point, young children, but also giving your business the time and the attention to grow. How did you find that balance? Was there any tips that you learned, any hacks that you're like, okay, this is how I can balance my time. This is how I can manage this.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I really believe in time blocking. So
Yeah.
that helped me out tremendously. And then working around the kids' schedule. So when I was in college, my older sister and I had the privilege to raise our younger brother and sister. They were 10 and 13 at the time, and we were in college. And I think that right there as a young person raising your siblings helped me with time management, because not
Mm.
only did I have to juggle a full-time school full units, I had a part-time job and I was in some organizations, and I also made sure that I make it to all of my younger sister's basketball games. And also, my little brother took karate at the time too. And so, at a young age, I was able to learn time management. And I still struggle with that as we add more stuff to the plate. Um, then you have to figure out other things. But the biggest thing that helped me grow as a producer was delegating.
Mm.
When I finally was at that point where I felt like there wasn't any more time left to give, I made the decision to hire my first assistant. And at the time, in my mind, I justified maybe taking a pay cut so that I could have more time with the family. But Christian, you probably experienced this too when you were at that step, is when you ended up hiring your assistant, it turns out it almost doubled my income,
Yep.
because now I'm spending time doing the things that bring in business and not service work.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So what are some things? So you've built a really good business. You've become, very successful as an agent now. How many years have you been doing insurance now, Malia, since
I
that
would
beginning
say
point?
about 8 to 10 years ago.
8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah,
So
it just went by so fast. My kids were
I,
babies at the time, though.
yes. Um, what are some things that have allowed you to grow your business and be successful? Like, I know one thing that you talk a lot about is, being magnetic and drawing attention to you and kind of implementing this attraction kind of formula, which I think is fantastic and a great and a great way to kind of grow your business. Talk a little bit about that, but also talk about like what are some things that allowed you to get clients in the door and allowed you to really start to grow this business that you've built?
Yeah. So Christian, I do believe that it's all about how you communicate.
Yeah.
So I mentioned how I was so shy when I was younger. I was afraid to speak to strangers. What ended up happening is I started studying the art of communication. And I do have referral partners from all over the US, and most of them I've never met before. But I can guarantee you that if I've never worked on my communication skills, then definitely they wouldn't be sending business my way. Would you agree?
I would.
So,
Yeah.
so that's huge. Putting yourself out there and just connecting with people. And so I would say that if I can do it, then anyone can, because it's a skill that you can learn. It's not something that you necessarily are born with. And for a while, I thought, well, these are the steps. I went back and retraced and tried to train a bunch of people on how to set up referral partners. And then I realized you can do all those steps, but if they don't like you, they won't send you business. And so the
Yeah.
key is to work on yourself, your self-improvement and characteristics to draw people to want to work with you, want to partner with you, want to send people your way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's that old saying, right? It's not about what you say, it's how you say it. It's, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself, right, to others. And that ability to come across as genuine and likable, I think is so vital. So, Malia, talk a little bit. So you mentioned, when you were younger, you had this innate shyness, right? You had
Yes.
this shyness. And what were some things? Because I can definitely relate, right? People might not think about me when it comes to shy, but um, I remember, when I first started, because I started in the business making cold calls at 20 years old, 21 years old, and don't recommend it, by the way. If you're listening to this, don't recommend it. That's just what I was told to do, and I said okay. But I built my business the first few years doing that, and I remember my hand shaking, going to pick up the phone and like talking to people. I remember going and going to people's houses. The model was call Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, schedule appointments for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and go to people's homes. And I
Wow.
remember I remember going up to people's homes and going to ring their doorbell, and I'm just freaked. I've got the butterflies, And I remember the first time I ever spoke in front of an audience for insurance was at actually First Medicare Con.
Wow.
I'm not afraid to say it now. It was like 4 years ago now, but I remember just feeling anxiety of going up on the stage. What I've learned is the best way to tackle those demons is to force yourself to be in that situation. Do you feel like that is kind of what you did to help you kind of overcome the shyness, and was there anything in particular with that helped you overcome
Yeah.
it?
Well, first of all, Christian, I've heard you live and you're just phenomenal.
Oh, well, thank you.
So there's no way I would ever think that you were ever nervous. Um, so yeah, I totally agree with you. Just forcing yourself to do it. And one thing that kind of helped me was, and I didn't know this at the time, but later on, I found, have you heard of the 5 second rule? The
No, I
five
don't think
second
so.
rule is I believe it was Mel. Oh, her name just went off my mind. But anyways, there's a 5 second rule. And the truth is you'll come up with an idea like, oh, I should go talk to that person, or oh, I should go do something. But then your brain talks yourself out of it because
Hmm.
your brain is like protection mode, right? And so the theory is that you the minute that you think of it, you do it right away. You count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna go do it. I'm gonna go talk to that person, even though if I'm scared to do it, or I'm gonna raise my hand and say something, whatever that is. So when you think of it, just do it.
Yeah.
And so that's help. And then it gives reinforcement. So I was actually afraid to talk to strangers. And then when I started forcing myself to do it, I realized, talking to strangers is not so bad after all. And of course, this is in college. So I'm an adult. It's not like, a little kid talking to strangers,
Sure. Yeah.
because there's safety issues as well. But then you have positive reinforcement that strangers are not so scary to talk to sometimes. And everybody needs connections. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
We're kind of missing that right now. And so if you reach out and you talk to a stranger, it might actually make their day.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true, like, and it's not something that probably happens regularly to them, right? That someone comes up and starts a conversation and genuinely has interest in them, right? And it makes
That's
them feel
true.
good about themselves. And I think that's a great point. I talk to people all the time about video, right? People always want to start making like videos or start building a YouTube channel or podcast, bring in more clients, or whatever they're trying to do. And that's one thing that people are always that I hear pretty commonly, that they're afraid to do video, right? And I think that it applies very nicely with what you said, like don't overthink it. Just make a commitment, and if you're going to do it, just do it. And what I've always told people about video is it's just you and this little dot that you're staring into for the camera, like,
Right.
and that's it. Don't
Right.
overthink it. Just talk like you're having a conversation, and you know, and then people always be like, oh, after they did it, oh, that wasn't so bad. Whether it's on stage, whether it's talking to somebody, or whether it's a video. Um, I think there's a ton of wisdom in what you said there, though, is because your brain can, sabotage itself, and that logic side of your brain just starts thinking of every reason why you shouldn't.
Right, right. And you bring up really good points too. I do remember when I first started trying to do video and how uncomfortable it was. And I
Yeah,
remember asking you, hey, how do you do it? Because at that time you've already recorded hundreds of videos, and you
yeah,
said, I just did it. And the first, 100 videos were horrible.
yes,
and,
yes,
so, and so just do it, right? Um, and you brought up a really good point about looking into the camera,
yeah,
because that's one thing that has helped me when I'm creating videos as well. And I haven't created that many, I'm still working on it, but looking into the camera, because then it's a lot easier to connect with your audience. But they get a taste of what it's like to actually work with you, the
yeah,
sound of your voice, your tone. And so they don't get that when you're just emailing them or texting them.
yeah. It's true. It's true. Like what I've always said about video is like when you put out information through video or you communicate a point through video, people really genuinely feel like they know you.
It's
Like
true.
they watch, they associate you just like any other person that they've seen on a TV screen. They associate you with someone they see on a screen, and that's what they think of you as. And who are other people they associate that are on a screen, right? Like celebrities and movie stars and stuff like that. Obviously, none of us are that, but to them, you are, because they've spent so much time listening to you, and they genuinely feel like they know you. There's a connection that they feel. You might not feel it back because you don't know them, but like they
Right.
they feel that connection with you. And it's such an
Mhm.
interesting dynamic.
It's
That the
true. And
video.
even the sound of your voice makes a difference too. So I'll share with you kind of a funny story. The other day, I got through with a call. Towards the end of the call, this prospect says to me, judging from your headshot, I thought you were going to have like a higher childlike, pitch sounding voice. And I was relieved when you came on and your voice was like deep, a lot deeper than I thought. And I said,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I did these studies, and it shows that a deeper tone of voice is more authoritative. And so I started doing, I accidentally, I accidentally found out that if you're doing these breathing exercises, you can actually lower the sound of your voice. And so, yeah, and there's proof, because January of last year, I started recording YouTube videos for my clients. And then I started taking singing lessons, like vocal lessons, in February. And then by March, and we did a lot of breathing exercises for singing. I don't know if you do those, because I know you're a musician.
I have when I was younger. I haven't for a while, but I have when I was younger. I used to have like delusions that I would be like a rock star. I always thought I was going to be that, but yeah,
Well,
I haven't. I know what you mean. I have in the past.
I know you're a talented drummer too. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah. So anyways, by March, I started noticing that the sound of my voice was less cringy on the videos, and it's from all those breathing exercises. So we ended the call by doing breathing exercises because she wanted to lower her voice too. But when I mentioned that to her, she said, yeah, that's totally true. When I heard your voice, I thought, here, take my money. Tell me what to do with it, And she was telling me how one time she was on this dating website and she started to get to know this guy, and she thought she was falling for him, and she just was really excited to meet him. And when she finally met him, the sound of his voice just ruined it for her. Yes. So the sound of your voice does matter, but you can also change that if you don't like the sound of your voice.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Like one thing I learned as I was as a young agent, someone starting at 20, 21, 22, 20, like that type of range, when I was first started building my client base, I learned really quickly that when you're making sales calls or when you're doing presentations, your tone is so important with your voice. Like how you pronounce things, how you enunciate, makes all of the difference. I think we've all, I don't know if you have, Malia, but I certainly have. I've had people call me up and they're trying to sell me something, whatever, reverse mortgage, vacuum cleaner, or whatever the case might be. And I'll have people call me up, and there's been moments where I'm, especially early on in my career, I was super invested in learning the art form of sales, that I'm like, I'm listening to how they're talking to me. I'm just, I'm curious how they're going to do it. I'm not going to buy anything. I'm wasting my time in theirs, but I'm just listening. And they'll call up and they'll be like, "Is this Mr. Brindle?"
The monotone voice is the worst.
Horrible. And, even if I had thought I'm not going to buy whatever they're buying, maybe I would have. You don't know. Like if you had if there wasn't such an approach, but I guarantee it could be gold bars for free. And all I have to do is say, yes, I probably wouldn't have done it because of the monotone voice.
Right. It's everything. And not only that, but you can say the same sentence, but if you say it in a upwards inflection or a lower inflection, it totally means something different. Yeah. And so that's why it's really easy for people to misinterpret things that you text or email.
This video is sponsored by none other than Lead Heroes, you guys. Lead Heroes is going to be your one-stop shop when it comes to your Medicare and final expense needs. People ask me all the time, Christian, what type of lead is going to be the best quality for me to work? And I don't really quite know if the answer is going to be a digital marketing lead, a direct mail lead, or a telemarketed lead, but I can say that a telemarketed lead is going to be up there with the best of them in terms of quality. A telemarketed lead has unique quality to it because there's a live person that actually speaks to the prospective customer and gets their verbal consent that they're interested and willing to speak with a licensed agent just like you. Whether it be a pre-scheduled Medicare appointment with a scope of appointment captured and then scheduled on your calendar 48 hours out, or whether it be a custom calling campaign where you call the shots, where your scripts are used, where it's the areas of your choosing, when it's the times of the day that you're choosing. Custom calling is where you pay by the hour, and essentially it's a custom campaign built to your liking. Lead Heroes has got you covered for all of these unique type of marketing needs for agents. There's a link down in the description of this video about Lead Heroes. You can learn more about these incredibly unique lead generation services And I think you'll want to check it out today so you can continue to grow and explode your business. Yeah, because they're putting tone on it. They're like picturing what you mean, or like, there's so many different ways you could say something and it could mean 15 different things.
Right. So a couple years back, my husband got a really nasty email and he was kind of upset about it. So I said, well, what did she say? So he hands me the phone and he says, look at what she said in this email. So I read it in like this really kind, sweet tone voice. And he says, you know what? That doesn't sound as bad as I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've all been guilty of that one time or another. Um,
Yes.
so Malia, I wanted to I was kind of curious, right? So you started with the Medicare game, right?
Yes.
When did you start incorporating ACA into your business as well? Because I know that you do both, and I know you're very proficient at ACA. When did you start incorporating that in? And was it primarily built with a referral model as well, like Medicare was for you?
Yeah, so I love Medicare. It's probably my favorite. And then about 2 years in, well, I what happened was people, and you probably experienced this too, um, is you'll help a client with Medicare and they'll say, thank you so much for helping me. But you know who really needs help is my daughter or my
Hmm.
son.
Yeah.
And there's no one at the time, there was really hardly anyone writing under 65 individual health. And so I started trying to refer that out. And I was having a really hard time finding someone reliable that would call clients back. So I thought, you know what? If if I can't find anyone to do it, then I need to just roll up my sleeves and jump in and dive. So that's when I started, like probably 2 years in after doing Medicare is when I started offering under 65.
Got it.
And yeah, and so I still don't think there's enough agents that write under 65. You could find people all day long selling Medicare, but it's hard to find a good under 65 agent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And
Mhm.
um, what is the key do you think for, and let's say there's a Medicare agent that's watching this, they've never
Mhm.
done ACA and they're just like, oh, ACA, that was me too, by the way. Like, well,
Yeah.
I fought us offering ACA as an agency for years. Like we referred it out and it got to the
Mhm.
point where I was like, this is just getting ridiculous, you know?
Right.
What do you like? So let's say there's some Medicare agent watching and they're on the fence of like, should I add ACA? Should I not add ACA? What would you say is the keys to adding it as a Medicare agent? Like, is there anything in particular that you feel like a Medicare agent in particular that's programmed that knows Medicare needs to know? Any key differences, anything like that?
Yeah, so I really think that the main hesitation is two things. Number one, they think it's complicated.
Hmm.
Um, and under 65 is actually less complicated than Medicare. So if you can learn Medicare, you can learn under 65. The other thing is there's this misconception that there's no money to be made. It's not worth getting into, but the truth is that you can actually grow your residual income quicker selling under 65, especially if you learn to package the coverage for
Yeah.
the client. Then you can actually grow it quicker than if you're trying to grow Medicare business. So I believe you need both. So under 65 helps you grow really quick. And then Medicare is stable income, residual income, because Medicare clients don't really like to make changes, or they tend to be more loyal, right?
Hmm.
So that's the two main things. And then I also believe that it does get your foot in the door with more referral partners, because if there's not as many people selling under 65, then it's more likely that when someone like a financial advisor or a PNC agent meets you, the likelihood that they haven't met somebody that can help their clients with that.
Yeah, I think that's a
So
great point. That's a great
yeah,
point. I mean, less agents means less options, right? Of who
right.
they can refer it to. Um, I think I think it's such an interesting thing. I think there's all these things you hear about ACA, right? It's more complicated, it's a pain. And don't get me wrong, there's cases you can run into that really kind of
Oh,
get into
yes.
the weeds, but it's not the
Right.
norm, is what I've learned, since we've gotten into it. It's like the
Mm,
average ACA case is 15, 20 minutes usually. And the app is very
right.
simple. Um, the subsidies are calculated for you. Like I think it's such a there's less regulation, right? There's regulation, but there's
Yes.
less regulation.
Yes.
Um, there's so many good things about kind of writing ACA. You have help on demand. I don't think it's what it was 2 or 3 years ago, but you still have
Mhm.
programs like that can refer business to agents. You know, um,
Yes.
yeah, there's still it's amazing to me. It's still such a quite a big opportunity for people.
Right. Yes. And for some reason, a lot of people don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yes, still. Um, so one thing I've always looked at with you, Malia, is like, you know, and to hear that about kind of early on, how, how you were relatively shy, it's
Mm,
amazing to me that all the work you've done in terms of like, almost like transforming yourself into this, charismatic person that you are today. Um, what are some tips you'd give to somebody that's just starting out? Like if they're starting out from scratch, right? Because you got into the business 8 to 10 years ago. I got
mm,
in about the same time, probably 10, 11 years ago. And
mm.
when we got started, it was a lot different than it is now. There's a lot more systems, there's more technology. On the Medicare side, there's more competition, there's more regulation.
Mhm.
What are some tips you'd give an agent that was starting out today? What do they need to know?
Yeah, definitely. It's all about being visible and just putting yourself out there. So,
Yeah.
I do remember growing up thinking that self attention seeking was a really, really bad thing, right? And so I never wanted to draw attention to myself or anything like that. But then I heard Coach Burt say that, remember, it's not the best product that wins, it's the best marketed product that wins. And
Mm,
so in this industry where there are so many, the competition's really high, and the success rate is kind of low, you do have to stand out. And so you don't have to necessarily be the best agent, but if you're the best marketed agent, then you will be surprised how easy it is to attract business. And so, definitely, I would say put yourself out there. And that means helping out people, in the community and showing up to networking events and just trying to be a good resource for people. Because if you, the best people that are most successful, you'll notice, are always helping others, right?
yep. That's right. That's right. That's
So,
very true.
yeah. And if people don't know, like, and trust you, then they're not likely to do business with you or send business your way when the time comes, or
Yep.
if they know somebody that needs your help.
What do you think is the best way for a new agent to start networking? Is it going to networking events like you just said? Is it like getting into groups of people, or is it reaching out to businesses in the area? What does it look like? Or is it a combination?
I would have to say all of the above, but also so definitely go out to the business networking events. And I'll tell you, even some of those networking events, when I'm joining, I'm actually not trying to gain more business, believe it or not. But it just organically happens. I just want to connect with people. So
Yeah.
the goal is to connect with as many people as possible, not trying to earn their business or anything, but just to get to know them, and of course serve whoever you can. But it could even mean taking classes. It could mean, and then if you're just like cold call walking into offices, like estate attorneys offices, PNC agent offices, or financial advisors. When you're walking in, you're not asking them for business, you're asking them for a one-on-one so that you could connect with them and to get to know them. That's the key. So if you're walking in doing those things, you do need to be more intentional about who you're spending your time meeting up with. So you're not going to, partner with professionals that don't really have the same demographics of the clientele that you're looking for, right? So figure out, who do you want to service? Do you have like a certain market you're targeting? And then figure out, who are the people that are solving problems for those demographics? And then that's the professionals that you want to connect with.
I love it. I love it. I think that's some great advice. Malia, I want to be respectful of your time, right? We've had a great conversation. As always, right? I really, really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you? If they wanted to connect with you after watching this, right? They got all the way to the end. Where can people find Malia Rogers the easiest?
Probably on Facebook. So that would be the best way to connect with me. And I don't have the max number of friends yet required. So I've heard there's a max. Is it like 5,000? You probably know, yes. Christian.
Yeah, it is 5,000, and I'm there. But once in a, I have so many people I'm connected with that I don't know. Once in a blue moon, somebody will unfriend me or they delete their account or something. And then it frees somebody up, and then I can let somebody else in,
Is there like a waiting list to become Christian Brindle's friend?
I don't know if I consider it a waiting list, but there are like, I don't know if I should say this. I'll just say it. There's probably 400 or 500 pending friend requests. So I just, I pick one. I'm like, every time I let somebody in, and it's just because to me, I think it's stupid. I think Facebook should just have unlimited friends. I don't know why there's a limit, but.
Right. Well, what is your, like, how do they get you to say yes, confirm? Is it because they have a lot of mutual friends? Do you actually go on their profile?
Mutual friends usually helps. Like if I have like 200 or 300 or 400 mutual friends, like I probably won't even look at their profile. I'll just say yes. Sometimes it's somebody that I know, like there's been situations recently where like there's been, since our merger with Lead Heroes, there's been employees that I know that work for me now. Right. With Lead Heroes that are friending me, and I'm like, oh, I should probably friend this person, because they work for us. And
yeah, congratulations, by the way. That is so awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, big change, huge change. But yeah, well, again, Malia, thank you so much. This was phenomenal as always, guys. If you're not following Malia and connected with Malia on Facebook, you should definitely do that. She's always putting out great information. She's a wealth of knowledge. Yeah, Malia, thank you as always for all of your insight and all of your great value that you share.
Thank you for having me, Christian. It's been fun chatting with you.
Absolutely. Guys, if you liked this episode, the only way I'm going to know about it is if you like, comment, subscribe, 5-star reviews on audio platforms if you're listening to the audio version, and we'll be back with you guys next time with another episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. Thanks, everybody.